everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is Fortuna Risk Compass. Very quick and short advertising video about the benefits of the risk assessment platform we call Risk Compass. I just go through fairly quickly on some of these things. Again, there'll be other videos with more detailed instruction or details in general. So obviously, this is our first home page. When you go to it without logging in, you can sign in here or here. One of the cool features about this platform is that a lot of times we run across companies that don't really know how to do risk assessments. And again, another word for assessing is guessing, but they have no idea. So we have a set of risk templates that are fairly generic across any entity, but also a set of risk or asset templates that's available inside the platform. We have a RACI chart option, so you can determine who's responsible, accountable, or whatever. There's also workflows, and as a part of the workflows and notes and attachments, there's also a full audit trail. Because as a company that's going to be audited, you want to make sure that your information is auditable in case the auditor asks, why did you do certain things, or what was the lifespan of this risk, or have you even done a risk assessment? And if you have, then you can show them this. Not only that, you can show them that you reviewed it periodically. There's also roles. There's standard RACI roles, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, but there's also company admin roles. So basically the role that manages the company. And then down here, some other platforms that we have available. We'll be adding to this as time goes on. So I am going to go ahead and pause the video periodically, to switch companies, to switch fields, and so on. I'll describe the authentication process when I get back online. All righty, here we are. After you log in, this is the first screen you're going to go to. Oh, and I do want to describe the authentication process. So we use magic links. You can also authenticate by Google or G Suite, and you can, coming soon, authenticate by Azure. The reason we do magic links or authentication through another platform is because we don't want to be responsible for storing your password or have to do password resets or anything else along those lines. So that's so if you do have a compromised account in the platform, that means your email was compromised, and it's not our platform's issue. All right, so here we are. This is your first screen. You'll get to just real simple. Here's some of those same platforms that we talked about at the beginning. There's a support function, admin function. Unless you're company administrator, you're not even going to see that. Reminder log. When you send emails about people that have to deal with risk, it's all logged here. This is your account. This is activity log. We'll talk about suggestions and so on. Companies, that's where your company data is going to be held at. So you can change the whatever. Super important when you register or subscribe to the platform that you put in your company email domain accurately. Then we have asset templates, risk templates. We'll talk about that in a minute. RACI chart, review calendar, duplicates, assets, risks, and so on. So let's talk about the dashboard first, though. Here we have the risks for Arrakis Consulting. A lot of these are demo risks, basically to take up space, show you what the platform looks like. Here is a risk heat map at the top based on likelihood and impact. And again, it's assessing. A risk assessment is another way of saying assessing is guessing. So when you do this for your company, you may not agree with some of the things that we've assessed as a low likelihood or a low impact. It may be high for you. You can see the difference of, this is a spider chart of all these risks in relation to category that they might be in. So it looks like there's high risks for Mother Nature in there. We also have a dollar value heat map. So this is the value of the risk itself. All right, so in this case, we have a risk right here, $21,000. That's the value of the risk. But that doesn't mean it's the value of the assets that the risk is associated with. So you could, for example, have contractual risk where you're not meeting your contractual obligations. And then there could be a penalty in there, like 3 times the value of the contract. So if it's $1 million contract, then the risk is $3 million. But the physical, the tangible assets that underlie that, like the software, the technology, the people, and so on, that would be down here, the asset risk heat map. So another way of putting it is, let's say Active Directory goes down. Well, the value of that risk, the negative value of that risk could be, like, in this case, I'm just making numbers up, but let's say it's $21,000. But the value of the assets that Active Directory sits on top of is $10,000. Why we did this is because we want leaders, managers, executives, and so on, the C-suite, we want to provide them as much information as possible so they can make better decisions. In some cases, it may be better for the business to just accept the risk and not do anything about it. In other cases, it may be the complete opposite. In some cases, it may be where if you try to mitigate the risk, it's just going to be an extreme amount of discomfort and cost exposure and things like that, but you have no legal reason not to do it. In fact, if you don't do it, you could be criminally liable. So we want you to have every possible reason to, or bit of information to help make the right decisions. Down here, top 5 by dollar exposure, based on the risks and the information, the assets and everything. Top 5 residual risk, and then the most recent risks that were uploaded. So here we have, before we go into the risks area or the assets area, I want to talk about risk in general. A lot of companies that Arrakis Consulting has run across, they have a very similar situation in that they simply do not understand the concept of risk. They believe that risk is only cybersecurity related, or only privacy related, or only IT related, or whatever. Well, in order to understand risk, you first have to understand the concept of asset. An asset is anything of value. It could be technology, information, people, anything of value. And of course, if you have something of value that a company cares about, naturally, you could have a risk associated with that value. So, for example, an asset, the people asset, or the asset where people would fall under, that's an asset. And then you have the pandemic. That's the risk, that there could be another pandemic that can make a lot of people sick. So you have an asset, and then you have a risk associated with that asset. That doesn't mean that the risks will actually happen. It just means that they are there, and they could happen. So because of that, a lot of companies are kind of lost sometimes. What we've done is created a whole set of risk templates. There's about 160 in here. If you see a risk that should be a template that's not in there, feel free to reach out to us. You can use the support option down here and let us know, like, hey man, you forgot whatever. And I think it should be a great template for your platform. And if we agree with you, we'll be happy to add it in. We might actually reach out to you and say, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Why did you suggest it? Same thing with risk templates, same thing with asset templates. We have some assets that are pre-programmed. They're very generic. You can change them, add to them. If you have a custom asset that's only good for you, then I'll show you how to create your own assets. So what you want to do is for risk templates, if you have no risks or you're not really sure what you do, go through here and figure out, is there anything in here that might be interesting to the company from the standpoint of risk? So like maybe there is banners or something that's pretty popular across all regulatory environments. Also badging. Here, I'm going to pick badging. So use for my company. And then once you do that, for your situation, your drop down will only show your company. But once you do that, let me pause real fast so I can put a wrap. And we're back. So here we have badging. All personnel, including guests, should be badged appropriately for identification reasons, as well as quick understanding of appropriate security access. So that's the description of what could happen in relation to badging. You can change the category if you want. If you want to check legal implications of why you're doing this, just go ahead and click this button. In some cases, legal implications will come back with something that's interesting, but not in all cases. There's a lot of cybersecurity compliance aspects of things that don't actually have a legal reasoning behind it, but it's just good to do. So let's talk about this real fast. I do want to point out, let me just, when you change these sliding bars here or here or here, then this will change as well. So I can change the equation. Oh, well, I can change the sliding bar here, and then this changed. I'm going to go ahead and put it back. All right, so if you have a mitigating factor, and I'm going to put in no physical locations. All right, you can put in a mitigating factor. This is probably a bad example, but I can guess, because again, remember, assessing is guessing. Since I have no physical locations, badging is a possible risk, but there's no physical locations. I'm going to max that out at 10. If it's some other mitigating factor, you can again guess to a different number. Why this is important is because the equations change based on the input you put in there. So let's say if I had a physical location, and it was, I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say if I had a physical location and the risk came to life, then it's a $10,000 risk. So what does it cost to implement badging? Let's just say $1,000. Well, what's the remediation effort? How much effort, human effort, does it take to remediate? So this would be technology, or it could be technology plus effort, or it could be anything. So let's just say 10 hours. So here is where we start seeing some of the math come to life. So $10,000 risk down here, that's the immediate risk. All right. But we have a mitigating factor of no physical locations at all. So our residual value is now $1,000 because we don't have any physical locations for badging. But that's the immediate, and this is residual. And these are very common in risk assessment frameworks. But there's actually another set of risks that helps equate and understand a little bit better. That's how often you have to worry about it. So that would be your long-term value. So if I had to worry about this 5 times a year, then that means that the risk is really $5,000 every occurrence. So 5 times a year, $5,000 every occurrence. So that would be pretty bad. If I had to worry about this every 5 years, then it's really only at $200. So we have immediate, residual, and then super long-term risk that's in there. Target review date, I'm just going to put in some fictional numbers here. And then we do create risk. Okay, here we have status workflow. Open means that it's open, you haven't done anything. In progress means you've identified it, you're started on it. Mitigated is you've done everything you can. Accepted means you're going to accept the risk the way it is. Transferred is, say you're going to transfer the obligation of taking care of the risk to some other third party. And avoided, well, in this case, there's no physical location, so we have actually avoided the risk because we don't have physical locations. I'm going to leave this open for now. Same thing, all this stuff is carried over. Same equations. If you want, you can associate, you can upload attachments in relation to it. Here we have associated assets, though. Let's go ahead and look at this. Let's say we have CEO iPhone equipment. We don't want somebody to steal the iPhone from the CEO. So attach. So what we've done by doing this is we've taken the asset that was predetermined to be valuable, associated. We gave the value of $1,000, and we've attached it to that risk. So if you'll remember that third heat map, that's where these numbers come from. We can assign ownership here. All you got to do is type in the email address, give them a title or a role, and then click Add Editor. If you do this, though, you should understand anybody who is assigned any one of these 5 roles is going to get an email in about 30 seconds after pressing Add Editor, indicating that they've been associated with a risk of some sort. And it'll tell them whether they're consulted or informed or whatever. You can add notes. There's an audit log down below for everything. If you tag people, though, in your note and you press Add Note, then pretty much view it as a permanent recording because it's going to be there. So let's go ahead and change this from open to in progress right here. Demo purposes, confirm change. And if we now have a history of the status, but if we scroll down here, look at that, in progress for demo purposes. Now in real life, we don't actually have physical locations. Everybody's remote, so let's change it to avoided. No actual physical locations. Confirm change. Again, similar process in relation to tracking and everything else. And there's the history, and then farther down, there's the no actual physical location. You can see the timestamp. Now, one of the very, very cool things about Fortuna Risk Compass and the next video, which is going to be Prothesis POAM Builder, is the fact that you can export your risks to Prothesis. So let's say, for example, I go ahead and put this back into open status, demo purposes. You never want to transfer risks that are already mitigated, that basically any status that doesn't need a POAM. So here we have it, the open risk again. I'm going to export to Prothesis. So if you have an account in Prothesis, when you export, it will automatically go to Prothesis and it will start the POAM process for you. So you can see it says POAM created in Prothesis. Prothesis, though, that's another video. All right, let me pause and I will switch over to assets. Okay, here we are with the assets. If you don't have any assets, again, you can just kind of go through and pick some. Here's the CEO iPhone, $1,000 that was just recently added. We've added a bunch of laptops We've added a bunch of assets in here for the purposes of demonstration. You can add more than one. You can change things. If you want to change the description or the value, all you got to do is click the pencil icon and go in there and start, changing stuff. All right. There's also a RACI matrix. Let me pause and get to that real fast. All right. Once a risk has been assigned to a user, then they're going to show up in the RACI matrix. The other standpoint is you're also going to understand that whoever is assigned a profile in here, they're going to get an email saying, hey, you are now associated with this risk. So in this case, patch management, there's Carl, and then Janet are both associated with that risk. And both Carl and Janet got an email indicating that. All right, so you can see who is associated with the risk more. I do want to go over the status. So risk owner, that is a person who owns the risk. That doesn't mean that they're the person who is going to fix the risk or be accountable for it. So a lot of times CEOs are the owners, but sometimes they're not. Responsible, the person who fixes the risk or reduces the risk. Accountable, that's the person who's going to get in trouble if the person responsible doesn't do their job. Consulted, the person who provides advice in relation to remediation. And then informed, the person who needs to be aware that there is a risk and they need to track it for whatever reason. All right, with that, I'm going to pause again. I'll be right back. Okay, I've clicked on the review calendar. With the review calendar, you can see exactly what risks need to be reviewed every so often. So you'll recall when I created the badging risk, I think I put in like 6/22/2027. So 2027 reviewing the badging risk will come up. So you can see by the month. So why did we do that? Well, a lot of companies, they have annual review of risks. Well, if you have 300 risks, that's a lot of reviewing that's going to get done at any one point in time. So we put it this way so you can visualize and see exactly what needs to be done. So maybe in November of 2026, instead of reviewing 24, move like 12 of them over to here, or maybe 6, and then add 3 here and 5 there. Maybe take some out of June and put it in July. That way you're spreading the risk assessment process out, and the risk review process. All right. We also have, we've gone over this before, but we have the risk templates, the asset templates. Now under companies, this is a really cool feature. I can't go into it, but I'll show you, I'll describe it, and then I'll show you portions of it. The reason we can't go into it is because there's several companies that use this platform, and you shouldn't be able to see them. As a part of entering your company information when you subscribe, you're going to have you're going to declare the frameworks that you care about. And you can change this later on if you want, but you're going to declare the frameworks. So when you create a risk, and say you're a company that cares about HIPAA, when you create a risk, there's that option for suggest legal references. It'll go in and associate HIPAA with whatever the risk is, and it'll say, you care about this because the HIPAA requires it. So that's one of the features behind subscribing and entering accurate information. The other thing that's important in relation to accurate information is ensuring your email domain is correct. If you make a mistake there, then a lot of the platform just simply doesn't work from the standpoint of security. But one of the other cool things that's really, really neat is we have the custom URL for every single company. And as a part of that custom URL, you could post it like on your intranet sites or SharePoint or whatever. You can post it wherever you feel like it. On the internet, that's probably a bad place to post it, but SharePoint, intranet, so on. And then anybody in your company could submit a potential risk, and we'll go through that process, but they could submit a potential risk. And now what you've done is you've turned every single person in the company into a risk sensor, instead of just depending on the IT people or the cybersecurity people or the privacy people or the CISO or the CIO. Everybody's a risk sensor. So I'll show you what that looks like after I pause and open up that link, that custom URL. All right, so here is what it looks like. You have a custom URL. And the cool thing about it, again, is that's why your email domain is super important, because the platform will only accept submissions from the same email domain. This keeps people from all over the planet submitting risks that don't exist. So I'm just going to use this one, slime in the ice machine, and then potential for illness. All right, and then I'm not going to give it a category, but I could say personnel. Likelihood. Hopefully there's not a very high likelihood. Let's just move this down to 3, but the impact if somebody gets sick, it's going to be pretty bad. So, and then submit suggestion. Notice it has the submitter's name right there. So once it's there, submit suggestion. Now it's been suggested. And then you can go to this area, suggestions, and look at that, slime in the ice machine. It's for the Arrakis Consulting Company, submitter by this. This is what they estimate it to be. You can either approve or reject the potential for slime in the ice machine being a risk to your company. And you can see optional review notes if you want to have that as a part of submittal or whatever. So if I click approve, then it's going to show up in risks. So I'm going to reject this, by the way. So let's go through the assumption that 5 or 6 people saw slime in the ice machine, and they're concerned about everybody getting sick. But those 5 or 6 people don't talk to each other. They just submit the risk. And let's say you have 2 or 3 company admins that approve risk suggestions. They go, oh, look at that. Somebody said slime in the ice machine. That's a bad thing. I'm going to approve that risk. and then it happens 2 or 3 more times. That's why we have this option, because what we don't want to do is have 19 different versions of the same risk. So what we have is a similarity threshold. If there is a similarity of 80%, of at least 80%, then they'll show up here. And then all you got to do is decide which one you want to delete. So I'm not going to delete anything, but you can just literally just delete something, and then that risk goes away. And then at that point, you can, the risk has already been approved. You can just delete the duplicates. All right, and with that, I want to thank everybody for your time. This is probably the 4th take of this recording. I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.